Showtime.
That's great. This is ridiculous.
99.3 The Truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Right there. Ooh. That was the stupidest thing I ever heard.
Let's do it. Hit it.
It's time for Mac's World.
And here we go.
Everybody, let's get it started. Let's get it started.
Call Mac 244-0077 or text 809-0993.
It's showtime, everybody. Showtime.
Exclusively on 99.3 The Truth.
Something. There we go. 7 minutes after the top of the hour. It's 3:07 in the afternoon on a Friday. This is live. We are Friday live in studio the day after Thanksgiving 2016. And you are probably doing one of two things. Well, one of three things I can think of. One, you're napping, which means you're not listening. Two, you're driving to and from a retail store of some kind. Thanks for listening in the car. Hope you got what you were looking for. Did you find that one gift? You know the one. You got it, didn't you? Nailed it! And then number three, the other thing you might be doing is getting ready to watch the Iowa-Nebraska game, in which case we've got about, 20 more minutes with you until you tune us off, I guess. You can listen to this and watch the game. We can commentate. Should we pretend to make up plays? That would be fun. Just imagine what's actually going on in the ball game. I'm Chris Roloff, filling in for J. Michael McCoy. This is Mac's World Live on 99.3 FM The Truth. Today is a special broadcast. We've got lots of extra folks in the studio with us. We have two people missing. Mac is gone today, and Jebediah, our producer, is gone. And so Frank the Verse, that's right, he's not just a beautiful voice on the radio. He actually can produce a radio program and a webcast. So Frank, you're producing, but you've still got a mic in front of your face.
Yes, I do. So that's always dangerous.
That's right. And don't let him know this, but he's in control of the microphones. So if he just wants to talk, he can mute all of our microphones just like that he just did, and he could be in total control of the broadcast. So a lot of power given to Frank. Bob Montserrat, the Cat in the Hat, is here. He's watching the chat and the Service Legends text line at 515-809-0993. And then we've got a large cast of characters here. We've got Bud sitting next to Bob. We've got Terry sitting next to Bud, who's sitting next to Bob. We've got Carl, who's sitting next to Terry, who's sitting next to Bud, who's sitting next to Bob. And we've got Frank, who's sitting next to Carl, who's sitting next to Terry, who's sitting next to Bud, who's sitting next to Bob. Isn't that we can make like a children's book where you keep, and none of them are my mother, is the point. And all those guys except Bob are representing Safe Water International Ministries in some way. Terry, why don't you tell us, Terry Butler is kind of running this chaotic ship here. So, Terry, why don't you tell us why the other folks are here with S.W.I.M aside from yourself? Give me an introduction to everybody.
All right. Well, Frank is one of our board members and has been with S.W.I.M for quite a while now. The organization started in 2004. And he's made trips all over the world. He's been to Central America, down in Nicaragua, and the latest trip was in Cambodia. So he's going to share a little bit about that today. And then we have Carl Ratcliffe, who is a pastor from Nebraska. And Carl is pastoring a church that helped to support a mobile CPU build. So that's where we take our trailer and we drive to a church or a business, and we pull out all of the workstations, and volunteers help build these chlorine-producing units. And so Carl has had 2 builds at his church now, and so he's here to tell us a little bit about that.
Fantastic.
And then Bud, off to my right, is my spiritual mentor. Been friends for 20 years, going on 20 years now, and just has a great testimony and a real heart for what we're doing with respect to, bringing living water along with safe water to people that so desperately need it all around the world.
Absolutely. Bud, do you want to add anything to that? Why are you here today, sir?
My excitement about the kingdom. That's what prompts me to be here. I've been involved in a mission movement for a better part of 60 years. And taking up guys like Terry and trying to find a way to significantly penetrate the world around us with the message of Christ.
Do you find, and this is kind of an open question, Bud, you made me think of this, and this is, anybody can jump in on this. Do you guys find that increasingly more difficult, or do you find it's continuing to be possible and easy to share the gospel, to penetrate the world around us with the kingdom of God? That's a weird question. Do you think it's easy?
Yeah, I don't find it difficult at all.
You don't? Okay.
No, not at all. I think I count it a real privilege to be part of the history of man at such a time as this. I think there's opportunities that exist. You have, in these emerging countries, you have a growing middle class, the explosion of knowledge, and these people want to know what they're going to eat not only tomorrow, but the following day, and provides great opportunities. A lot of natural resources in these emerging countries are undeveloped, and it provides great opportunity. And of course, water is an absolute necessity for life. And John 7:37, on the last and greatest day of the feast, Jesus stood and cried with a loud voice, "If a man is thirsty, let him come to me and drink." That's John 7:37. Out of him will flow living water. And that's what this is about.
Well, that's encouraging news, and I hope that our listeners are encouraged by that today too. You know, with the recent elections here in the United States, as a Christian, many Christians went either way. They could have wanted the election to go any number of ways. It went the way that it went, but the world around us seemed to be very distraught. Seemed to be a little bit heartbroken. I think I told the story a couple of days ago that a friend of mine went into a coffee shop the Wednesday after the election, and there was a lady crying in the coffee shop. And he walked up to her and he said, "Well, what's wrong?" And she said, "Well, it's just been a rough morning." And he said, "What happened?" And she said, "I didn't think, I thought that I would see the first woman become president, and it didn't happen." And she was in tears crying about this. And that's just one of so many stories of people who their world was lost. And they don't have the hope of the kingdom that, Bud, you were talking about. Many people in the United States have put their hope and their comfort in the United States, in all the things that we take for granted. And now they've become idols. They've become the things that we run to that rescue us. And as a Christian, I wonder, how do we reach folks with the gospel? How do we reach people with the gospel? And that story of the gal who was crying in the coffee shop, that should have been, Bud, an open door to share the everlasting hope of Jesus with someone. But yet too often here in the United States, the conversation quickly goes, "But why did you vote for Hillary? You think Hillary's any good?" And then we start talking politics. Good, well-meaning Christians, Christ followers.
Francis Schaeffer,
Yeah.
Francis Schaeffer, some 50 years ago, he's a noted Swiss theologian, made a comment that we here in the West have culturally captivated the message of Christ. To try and understand that, a man I do business with, his name is Tim. I walked by his house. We stopped to visit one morning. And in the course of our conversation, I shared with him Psalm 139, 17 and 18 from the Living, which concludes by saying, "And this morning when I awoke, you were thinking about me." His response to that was, "Bud, that's really cool. What church do you go to?" I'm trying to tell him what's going on inside of me. He identified it with an activity that takes place on the first day of the week. And I think what Schaeffer said is so true, that we have the power of the message of Christ finds expression in righteous living. And that raises the question, well, what is that? You know, and where does that come from?
That's a good question. What is righteous living? And now, Carl, not to say that righteous living is doing a build, although it's not a bad idea.
Not bad.
Carl, you are the pastor of United Faith Community Church in a town called Valley, Nebraska. And we talked a little bit about this before. I had no idea where Valley, Nebraska was. It's too far to be considered a suburb, but it pretty much a suburb of Omaha, right?
Right. It's about 7 or 8 miles north and west of Omaha, between there and Fremont. Fremont's about a town of about 25,000, so we're still kind of in the metropolitan area, and we have a lot of folks who drive either direction to go to work. But Valley's also a town of about 1,800 to 2,000 people, but we have 2,500 jobs in town, so we have people driving to town all the time to get there. And it's an interesting town. If you stop and think about your typical town that's 1,000 to 2,000 people, usually it's got about 8 or 9 churches in it. And our town's a little unique because we have a Catholic church and we have a Lutheran church and we have our church, which is made up of Baptists, Presbyterians, Methodists officially, and then about 15 other denominations are represented among the people who are there. But we kind of ignore the denominational lines and we just come together and we worship Christ and we look at the Bible and we say that what the Bible says is the truth. I mean, that's God's word, and we may not understand every word of it. We may not all interpret it the same way exactly on every word, but there's a whole lot of truth in there that you don't have to worry about trying to pick through and get all the details, because the whole thing is pretty overwhelming when you look at it. This is the way you're supposed to live your life. You're supposed to live it. You need Christ in your heart. You need him to change your life, and it's not about staying the same or already being good enough. It's about Christ taking your heart and taking you where he wants you to go. And so we don't have to agree about everything, exactly the way you do a baptism or exactly, what do the individual elements of communion, do they turn into something else when you take them? That doesn't really make that much difference when it comes down to it, is that we're fellowshipping together as a body and we're doing this, and the representation is that Christ is present with us while we do that through his Holy Spirit. And so, but most small towns that size will have 6 or 8 or 10 churches in them. We've got 3 little churches going along, so we've got a lot of folks who are lost.
You're listening to 99.3 FM The Truth. We're going to talk about unity when we get back.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza, and it's got Graziano sausage.
3:21 in the afternoon on 99.3 FM The Truth. This is Max World Live. I'm Chris Roloff, hosting Max World Live today. We're talking about Safe Water International. We've got lots of folks from Safe Water International here. Bud is here, Terry is here, Carl is here, Frank is here, and no, not that Frank, another Frank, and then that Frank is here as well. In fact, that Frank, or Frank the Verse, is actually producing the broadcast today. Thank you, Frank, for filling in as Jeb is gone on his holiday, because this is the day after Turkey Day. It's the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. Doing a great job. No fires yet.
Not so far.
Well, we're doing all right. Nothing's caught on fire, so we're doing okay. We're talking about Safe Water International Ministries and the work that they're doing around the world. And so we want to put some skin on this and hear firsthand from Frank Reitzma, who is one of the board members with Safe Water International Ministries. And Frank, let me back up. Were you a board member before you went on mission stuff, or were you a missionary before S.W.I.M?
Probably, I'm not saying I was the first board member, but definitely one of the first. I'm probably the old timer in the community, and been with it since 2005, perhaps. And then I did start going on a few of the trips probably within the last 5 years. And as Terry mentioned, I've been to a number of countries. Started off with Haiti. That's been about 10 or 12 years ago. Been to Nicaragua several times. And just came back from the country of Cambodia the first week in August of this year, after spending about 12 days in the country of Cambodia. And very interesting country. I don't know if you want me to tell you a little bit about that.
Well, I do, but let me find out a little bit about. You said you got involved in S.W.I.M in 2005, so that's been about 11 years ago. How did you come to hear about, or why did you get involved with S.W.I.M?
Well, our founder, Greg and Vicki Stout, started the ministry a few years before that. I've known Greg practically all my life. We were next door neighbors into 1976. So I guess that kind of ages me and him as well. They went in different directions. I stayed where I was, but we finally got back together again then about 30 years later. He was involved with ministry. It wasn't called S.W.I.M at that time, but soon became S.W.I.M. And that's how, I just have known Greg and Vicki for years and years.
And Greg and Vicki, are they the folks that developed this product, or did Greg develop the actual chlorine-producing unit? Is that what he did?
Correct. He co-designed it and was instrumental in getting it started. It's been redesigned a number of times. If you look at it now, you wouldn't recognize it from the original. It does basically the same thing, but it's much more, what's the word? It's much smaller now, much more portable, much cheaper, very much cheaper than it was at that time. And it can be taken, of course, to isolated spots and very easily as well.
What attracted you to what Greg and Vicki were doing? What made, you knew them, you grew up with them, so you knew them as people, but what attracted you to their work with this chlorine-producing unit here?
We are very privileged in this country. Of course, you turn on a tap here or in Southern California or Northern Maine, and it's safe water to drink. But and I grew up on a dairy farm, so we used a lot of water in the dairy operation. And it was all good, clean water, but we'd use it to wash things down and to purify things. And then I started hearing that one flush of a toilet is about the amount of water that one family uses per day in a third world country. And that water is often impure. So what we use for one flush, what we use on the dairy farm, what we use just all the time is something that we take for granted, but people in third world countries definitely do not. And when you start looking at the statistics and start realizing that 7 out of 10 babies may die before they reach the age of 5 because of impure water, and how easily that could be changed around just by adding a little bit of chlorine, by using the machine that we have, and to train the people on how to use that chlorine. It's just so simple, and yet so many people aren't aware of what's available, and therefore their children die. Infant mortality is often very high.
Well, and Frank from Safe Water International Ministries is our guest. Frank, what you were saying there, though, when I think about, because I read that statistic actually earlier this morning, that one flush of our toilet uses more water than the average person in the developing world will use in a whole day.
Correct.
To think about that, I mean, how frequently we might flush the toilet.
Right.
You might wipe the counter of your sink off with a paper towel, throw it in the toilet, and flush it. I've never done that. But if you've ever done that, I have done that. And to think, there it was, just all that water that just threw away a piece of paper in that sense meant nothing to me.
Exactly.
Yet in the developing world, that's all the water that they might consume in a day. So what initially strikes me is a quantity issue. They don't get enough water. So would building a well be a good thing to do?
Well, obviously it would be a very good thing. Unfortunately, wells are quite expensive, and to get a well drilling system into a country is often prohibitive, and you got to have some technical knowledge to enable you to drill that well. Also, a well is in one central spot, and the water may be good, but people still have to walk a long distance to get to that well. And unfortunately, often we find out that wells can be, what's the word?
Contaminated.
Thank you, Terry. It can be contaminated very easily by having groundwater run into the well. So it's not the perfect answer. So what we'll often do is we'll say, okay, you've got a drilled well. Great, use it, take care of it. That's the best way to do that. But if it is contaminated, we've got this little system, this little chlorine system that can purify that water so that it is 100% safe to drink.
Does this, with the chlorine producing unit, does this increase the access that people have to water from getting it from nearby streams and places like that, or is that where they're already getting the water and this just cleans it?
Yeah, obviously the drilled wells are not all over the place, so people will have to draw water from a bored or a dug well, for example, one that they dig by hand. If that isn't available, they'll go to a stream, a river, Des Moines River, Skunk River, that type of thing, where the water is obviously impure, and that's when they start getting the bugs into their system. So if they have to use those systems, those water supplies, they're going to get sick. I mean, you and I would obviously get very ill if we drank water out of our local rivers, but if we can persuade people that just using a little bit of chlorine, 5 drops in a gallon of water, that's all it takes. And then the water will be 100% safe to drink. And but the beauty of this, again, too, is that as we can share the technology, we can share the message of Jesus Christ. And S.W.I.M is all right from its inception has said, okay, if we save people's lives by purifying water, that's great. But if that's all that we've done, we've extended their life a number of years, but they still have to meet their Savior. So if we can share the gospel of Jesus Christ by presenting Bibles, literature, Christian literature, Sunday school material, providing things for the pastors that are already in place, then we're starting to make progress. And it's a whole sequence of things that has to be done. It can't all be done in one day, but we make an effort to share the gospel by the use of the chlorinator.
Frank Reitzema is my guest. He's a board member of Safe Water International Ministries, that ministry we call around here S.W.I.M. You'll get to know S.W.I.M quite well today. Safe Water International Ministries is the title. Their website is swimforhim.org, SWIMFORHIM.org. You can also, if you'd like to get a link directly to that website, as well as a link to a video where you can watch some footage of how they do their work overseas with the chlorine producing unit. You can text the word SWIM to 515-251-2663. If you text the word SWIM to 515-251-2663, we'll send you a link to Safe Water International's website, as well as a link to a video that you can watch. And a lot of people have done that already. In fact, I had some friends come up to me at church and say, I texted and got that video. I just haven't watched it yet. So watch it. I mean, if you get the link, go ahead and watch it. That would be great. So Frank is with us. Of course, Terry is here. Carl is here. Bud is here. Bob is here. He's watching the text. If you've got a question for the folks at Safe Water International Ministries, you can send a question in to the broadcast today. We are live right now on your radio at 3:30 in the afternoon on a Friday. You can send us a text at 515-809-0993. Bob will get that on the air for us, or you can call Frank, and he will do even more multitasking by answering the phone as well if you call him at 515-244-0077. Frank, you said earlier that you've gone to Haiti, Nicaragua, and Cambodia.
Yes.
And Haiti is where you went first.
Correct.
Is that right? Tell me about that. Tell me about that first experience with SWIM over to Haiti, if you could. The one that impacted you there.
Oh my, that's been so many years ago. We went to northern Haiti at that time, the first trip. Again, the river, the people that we were in contact with there in Haiti drew their water from the river, and obviously terrible water. And as we presented the chlorinators to the people, they were skeptical. I mean, this was a long time ago, and it was difficult for us to present this type of technology into that area.
Let me ask you. You said they were skeptical. So what were they skeptical of? That it would do anything, or that it was? How would you describe their skepticism? I guess.
Well, part of their skepticism was that they thought that perhaps this machine would make them not be able to reproduce. It would make them sterile.
Right.
This was a effort by the white people to make them sterile.
I see.
So a little bit of skepticism there that way that we had to overcome.
Yeah. That's an interesting point, because I think a lot of times the way we talk about this Safe Water device, the chlorine producing unit that we talk a lot about with Safe Water International Ministries, we think we take that over there, they see it, we show them what it does, they go, that's great, we love it. So it's interesting to hear that at times they are skeptical, or they don't quite understand even what's going on, or why would you do this? And it's how did their reaction change when you were you able to communicate to them, not only do we not want you to be sterile and not be able to reproduce, but we're here because we love you and we want you to thrive and we want you to live well? I mean, were you able to transition that conversation?
Well, not the first trip. It did take a couple of trips before we got to that point. But again, we've got to gain people's trust when we come over there. If they see us come over once, they think, okay, it's just an American here trying to post pictures or whatever, that type of thing. But if they come back the second time, they start looking at us and saying, well, what's he doing? Why is he here? If we come back the third time, then they start asking questions. Why are you here? Well, then we can start sharing the gospel. We're here because we're Christians. We love Jesus Christ. We want to share the love of Jesus Christ, as well as present this technology which will help you prolong your life here on earth and make you healthier.
99.3 The Truth. Stick with us.
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed right or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money-back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I think it's on. It is on. The microphone is. This is 99.3 FM, and we're live on a Friday afternoon right here, the day after Thanksgiving in 2016. We thank you for listening. It's been 8 minutes now, so Iowa has completely defeated Nebraska, the Cornhuskers, in 8 minutes. It's over. The score is like 9 million to nothing, so you can stop watching the game now. It's over. The Hawkeyes have won. I'm kidding. I don't even know. In the first 8 minutes, what has happened? Anything you think? What do you think, Carl? Has anything happened?
Probably find out if we've got a quarterback at Nebraska at all, because our first 2 quarterbacks were injured pretty badly. One with Tommy Armstrong with his hamstring, and then our backup quarterback broke his opposite wrist last week at the ball game. So we might be looking at somebody coming on there who hasn't played.
Now, I like you, Carl, and I just met you, but did you hear that? Did you hear the excuses? You hear them coming, right?
They're coming.
So when Nebraska loses today, it's not our fault. It's not. I mean, we had. Right. And no, that was good, Carl. You did well. You
just watch out for the Wildcat formation, because anybody on the team can get the hike. So you never know for sure where it's coming from.
My goodness,
we resort to trick plays when we don't have the talent on the field at the moment that we need to have. So
what are the I honestly do not follow college football. So what are the standings? How is Nebraska doing this year?
Nebraska's only lost, I believe it's 2 games, so we could be 10-2 at the end of this day.
Wow,
maybe.
You guys would be kind of like the Cowboys. They won their 10th game in a row yesterday. Yeah, that was pretty nice for the Dallas Cowboys.
With somebody other than Romo as quarterback.
Unbelievable. Amazing. This new guy, how do you say his name? I always want to say Deckett, but that's not right. It's something like that. I didn't watch the game. I was playing board games downstairs while everybody else was watching the football game. But he did well. He's turned into quite the quarterback. So we are here with the guys from Safe Water International Ministries. Bud is here. Terry is here. Bob, of course, is here. If you've got questions for Safe Water International Ministries, you can send us a text. at 515, that's that thing where I give out my name, my phone number again, 515-809-0993. That's the text line, brought to you by Service Legends and First Call Bail Bonds at 515-809-0993. And Frank is one of the board members early on. Now, you're not one of the founders, but you're kind of one of the early board members. Is that right?
Probably so, yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking before we went to the break that you took your first trip with Safe Water International Ministries. You went to Haiti. And you said before we went to break that you'd gone once, and the folks there in Haiti were very skeptical because, they just didn't trust you. They thought you were there to do them harm rather than to help them. You came back a second time, a little less skeptical. And the third time, at that moment, and we're not talking about just day 1, day 2, day 3. We're actually talking about multiple trips.
Correct. Yes.
Right. So now they're starting to see, okay, these folks are really coming. What's this really all about? Mm-hmm. And you were able to share more with them. And Terry, you, before we get to that, you kind of pointed out an example to this. We have a biblical precedent for God's people and missions work returning multiple times to the same location. Right. What did you think of?
Well, in our study of Acts right now that we're going through, Paul and Barnabas on their first missionary journey, they left Antioch and they went out to an island and traveled that island. Then they went into Turkey, modern day Turkey, and all the places they went, they had great success initially, but there was a lot of opposition from the Jews because of the message of grace. And it was. I always scratch my head going, then they retrace their steps and go back to the same places again. And so you think about, well, why did they do that? And that was, again, to pass on encouragement and to teach. And, the more people saw them and heard, the more trust that was built up. And so that's what we find. I've had the same experience Frank had when I was in Ukraine with a couple of guys that after 3 trips, he said, he told me flat out, he said, I didn't know what to expect after the first trip. Then you came back again, and here you are again. And yeah, they do. You really are here to help me because you love me. So.
Yeah, you start to build a trust there, and then Frank, you said that not only did you go once, not only did you go a second time, and then a third time again, but now, and this was more than just yesterday. This was several years ago.
Correct. Yeah.
And now in Haiti, Safe Water International Ministries has someone on the ground, right?
Yes.
And what does that mean that you guys have that S.W.I.M has someone on the ground? What does that mean?
Well, Andy is a full-time missionary. He's actually a U.S. citizen. He's white, but he's been there how many years, Terry?
Probably at least 6 or more.
Yeah. Okay. So he's recognized. He's trusted. He's helped people so many times all these years. And so when I say he's on the ground, that means that he's got a house there. He lives there. His wife is there. He knows the language. He helps people with their impure water by setting up the CPUs. He'll help them rebuild their houses like they have to at this point. And he'll go to schools. He'll help schools get set up, build desks for them. His presence is there, and he's there full time. It's not just a short-term mission trip like some of us take for 2 weeks at a time and gone. He's there full time. So I guess that's probably what I mean by he's on the ground.
And when we talk about, for those who just may have tuned in, who are not watching or listening to the Iowa-Nebraska game right now, but they're in fact listening to us, and you talk about, we mentioned Safe Water International Ministries, and you mentioned this CPU, this chlorine-producing unit. Tell us a little bit, Frank, about what this is.
It's a small handheld machine. It uses a saline solution plus 12 volts of electricity. We pass the saline solution through 2 metal plates.
And saline solution, you just mean salt water, essentially, right?
Yes, correct, yes. We pass the the salt solution through the metal plates 5 times, and in that length of time, the saline solution is transformed into a chlorine. And that chlorine then is put into impure water at a rate of 5 drops per gallon, and that will completely purify that water and make it safe to drink. for anyone, even us.
Even silly-looking white people in Iowa,
That's
we could
right.
even drink it. So 5 drops of this, and how much chlorine solution, and Terry, do you know, maybe Frank, you know, how much chlorine solution does this, the one, after the 5 passes, how much chlorine solution did we make?
5.1 fluid ounces.
Okay. I'm holding a water bottle in my hand.
That's 12 ounces, what you got in your hand there.
This is 12 ounces. So like half of this of chlorine.
Right.
Okay. So I'm holding an average size water bottle. So how much chlorine? So that's half of an average size water bottle in chlorine, and it's 5 drops of chlorine will disinfect a gallon of water.
Actually,
is that right? Am I doing the math right?
Well, we've been doing a lot of work in India the last
Yeah.
few years, and with the outbreak of Ebola in Africa, and with the work that we've done in India, we found that because of cholera, and now with cholera being present in Haiti, it's actually 10 drops per liter. So if a 5-ounce bottle of chlorine solution will treat enough water, it'll treat 100 gallons of water, or enough water for 200 people.
Okay.
And you can make that in 5 minutes.
And that's the ratio is higher there because of the kind of infection in the water?
Right.
That's why. Okay. But you're still at that point at, what did you say? I'm sorry, how many drops per liter?
10 drops.
10 drops of this chlorine solution in a liter of water. That's still safe to drink, just like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you give it 20 to 30 minutes, and it kills all the pathogens in the water. Makes it safe to drink.
Plus, it doesn't have the odor that is often associated with chlorine as well. It's odorless and tasteless. And that's also something that's very, very much appreciated by those that receive the chlorine.
Absolutely. Well, we're talking with the folks from Safe Water International Ministries. You can see the device that we're talking about if you go to their website. It is swimforhim.org. SWIM, that stands for Safe Water International Ministries, forhim.org. Go to that website, check out what they're doing, the chlorine producing unit. You can see those there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids? Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rock and Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, and then Salem Radio Network News is going to update us on what's going on around the world here live on 99.3 FM. It's the Friday after Thanksgiving. I hope you're not too sleepy. Don't be sloopy. And thanks for listening and not tuning into the Iowa-Nebraska game. We all know that the Hawkeyes are going to win anyway, so why waste your time? I mean, it's just a thing. It's just what happens. So, because didn't they win last year? Didn't they win the game last year? Didn't the Hawkeyes win? Right.
I grew up in Iowa. See, I'm used to the team choking, and the biggest adaptation of going to Nebraska is that they don't always choke at the last minute. That's the tough part.
But
I'm starting to get used to that. But occasionally we'll choke, but not every time. That's the hard part.
Unlike Iowa, that chokes every time.
It seemed like it choked every time we got to a big game.
We've got his name is Carl Ratcliffe. He lives in Valley, Nebraska. So I mean, if you can send care of Carl Ratcliffe, Valley, Nebraska. No, and Valley is you guys are kind of a suburb of Omaha for those who don't know. Well, we've got the guys from Safe Water International Ministries. We had a few more minutes before the top of the hour, and Terry, you wanted to share a story here before we go to break.
You want to read that?
Yeah, go ahead.
This too.
The whole thing.
This story took place in India. The name of the girl is Purdy. Purdy is 12 years old, the youngest of 3 sisters in her hardworking family. Dad died when Purdy was a baby. Purdy still goes to school, while her 17-year-old sister works in a garment factory to support the family. Her mom was not able to work much, becoming sick more and more often and requiring money they didn't have for medical care and medicines. Doctors would periodically give Purdy's mom that special medicine to treat her distended belly, the common indicator of parasite worms. Her family began attending the new Christian church in their neighborhood that was planted by S.W.I.M, S.W.I.M's South India team, bringing safe water and living water to the slum area where Purdy lives. Upon hearing of the need for water treatment and seeing contaminated water in the microscope, Purdy correctly diagnosed that the cause of her mother's ongoing disease was their neighborhood water supply. With S.W.I.M chlorine-treated water, Purdy's mom is now healthy and able to provide for her family. Your contributions and dedicated efforts of local S.W.I.M teams provided safe water for Purdy's family, along with hundreds of thousands more in 2016. Purdy, her sister, and her mom all joined the church and accepted Jesus Christ as God and their Savior.
And that's a story, Terry. Thank you, Bud, for reading that. Terry, tell us where that story, how did that story get to you guys?
About 4 years ago, we had a couple of board members. Michael Glessner went with Earl Ratcliffe, and they went to this part of India and really wanted to just understand what the need was for safe water and living water. And after that, Rich Grant, another one of our board members, went back about 6 months later and started to formulate and develop a team. So we identified a guy by the name of Wilson. And Pastor Wilson, he's a pastor. And through that process, we helped to support Wilson as he started up a number of churches in that process, using the CPU to introduce people to safe water and the natural conversation about living water. And so we've been in north, central, and southern India for almost 4 years now. As Frank said earlier, with locals that are on the ground. So our job is to encourage, to train, to teach, and they really go about doing the work of the Lord in their area, because they know the people and they know the culture, and they have the network.
Well, you know, one of the things that I heard in that story that is really one of the things that excites me the most about Safe Water International, and that is that, you know, I think it's one thing to say we've got infected water and we shouldn't drink infected water, so that if we place this chlorine in it and it destroys the infection in the water, that's great. But what I heard in that story is one of the things that I like a whole lot, which is that if someone's sick, if they've got this already in their body because they've been drinking infected water, that drinking the clean water can actually go to war with the infection in their body. I think that's the part of it that excites me the most too, because it's one thing to think, okay, here's a cup of water and it's got disease and infection in it, I should just not drink it. But if it's the only source of water you have, you're going to drink it because you have to. And then from that, you get sick. And now what do I do? Okay, well, you can clean this water, but what about me? What about me? I'm sick and I'm dying and I'm in the hospital. Well, if you drink this too, it can help to clean you from the inside out. And I think that's what I heard in that story as well. And that's something that's incredibly powerful about safe, clean water that, like I've said before, we take for granted here in the States that we can just grab a bottle of water and it's not going to make me sick,
Everybody in that village knew Purdy's mom. And when Wilson was starting that church, he probably had 10 members or so. And when this daughter brought home this safe water to mom, and mom started to get better, everybody in the village learned about it. That church grew almost overnight, has 80 members today. I mean, it's just amazing. If you think about, living water, it cleanses the sin in our life. And so when we take it in, we become better as a result of that, just like you take in safe water and you become healthier as a result of that.
Absolutely. We've got the team from Safe Water International Ministries. They're going to stick around with us. They're going to be on with us next hour. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about this next hour. The 4 o'clock hour last Friday, we get a call from a guy by the name of Jordan. And he had asked a question that I thought was really great. A lot of times we hear about missions work that goes into a country, and it's just us going in, doing something for them, and we leave, and the people on the ground there have just gotten a handout. Their lives may have improved from the thing that you gave them, but over time, they're really not adding much to the quality of their life. And I think the question that was asked is, how are we empowering, how are we strengthening people on the ground with this work? And so I think we're going to get to hear a great answer, I think, from Safe Water International Ministries on that, hear about the work that they're doing in India, what they've done in Nicaragua, what they've done in Cambodia. And we'd love to hear from you. You're always welcome to call in, listening on a Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, as you're driving around on this Black Friday shopping. I know a lot of people are having fun going out, doing that kind of thing, hustling and bustling around. And you're listening to us, and we're talking about this gospel-centered ministry that's going on in the world. Maybe you'd like to find out about it. While you're sitting there, somebody's trying on some clothes, go to swimforhim.org, swimforhim.org. Check out the website. Look through that. Investigate this ministry. I think you'll find that they are doing some incredible work that you might want to get involved in. I am excited to be a part of and supporting Safe Water International Ministries, so I encourage you to do the same. Salem Radio Network News next.